Hey guys, Positive 25 here, watching the landing of Soyuz TMA-19M. Let's do this. Let's watch this message in things. Cosmos. When it does.
Good morning once again from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and welcome for our deorbit burn and landing coverage for the 3 returning crew members, the Expedition 47 crew now flying free from the International Space Station. Everything is going according to plan, with countdown clocks ticking backward to the deorbit burn, a 4-minute, 37-second engine firing retrograde that will slow the Soyuz velocity down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit to begin its descent back to Earth and a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. The deorbit burn is scheduled just over 21 minutes from now at 3:22 and 7 seconds Central Time, 4:22 a.m. Eastern Time. Everything is all set. All of the pre-landing preparations are in good shape. The Soyuz systems are functioning normally. The departing crew members who left the International Space Station earlier this morning, Tim Kopra of NASA, Tim Peake of the European Space Agency, and Soyuz Commander Yuri Malenchenko, wrapping up the 6th flight of his stellar career, and a total of 828 days in space over those 6 flights. They are strapped into their respective seats in the descent module of the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft. Much earlier on Friday night, the crew members got together at the hatchway to the Rosviet module of the International Space Station, to which the Soyuz had been docked since it arrived at the complex last December 15th. They bid 3 other crew members on board the station, the new Expedition 48 Commander Jeff Williams of NASA and his 2 Russian crewmates, Oleg Skripochka and Alexei Ovchinin, farewell. They closed the hatches behind them, the hatch closure occurring on the Soyuz side of the docking interface at 9:34 p.m. Central Time last night. The Rosviet hatch closed 1 minute later. The crew commenced a series of leak checks and then began to suit up in their Sokol launch and entry suits to begin final preparations for their departure from the station. The docking mechanism on the Soyuz spacecraft was powered up. The hooks holding the Soyuz in place at the Rosviet module docking port drove open, and then undocking occurred right on time at 12:52 a.m. Central Time, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time, as the Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 254 miles above far eastern Mongolia. This is video taken as we saw it live several hours ago as the Soyuz departed from the Rosviet module. It slowly backed away with 2 separation burns beginning a phasing away from the station for the Soyuz vehicle and setting the stage for the deorbit burn that is looming on the horizon about 18.5 minutes from now. As you can see from this video, the bulbous forward section of the Soyuz, called the orbital module, and the white section at the rear of the spacecraft, called the instrumentation and propulsion module. The crew is actually in the center section, called the descent module. They're strapped into their respective seats. Yuri Malenchenko in the center seat of the descent module as the Soyuz commander. On his left is NASA ISS Commander Tim Kopra, who just completed his stint on board the station as the Expedition 47 Commander, and strapped in the right seat as board engineer number 2 is Tim Peake of the European Space Agency, the first British astronaut to fly aboard the International Space Station. Those 3 crew members wrapping up 186 days in space, 2,976 orbits of the Earth, in a mission that has spanned almost 79 million miles. After the 2 separation burns in this video replay, you can see a dramatic view of the Soyuz phasing away from the station, with the moon serving as a backdrop. The Soyuz having passed now to a safe distance away from the station, as everything is all set for the deorbit burn that is set to begin just 17 minutes from now. This view from a balcony camera looking at the Russian flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov outside of Moscow as they watch over their data and all of the systems on the Soyuz spacecraft as it prepares for the deorbit burn, the engine firing that will begin the trek home for Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko.
That animation took a while to get in. Must work on your head.
The deorbit burn, as mentioned before, is looming on the horizon here. That will enable the Soyuz spacecraft to begin its trek back into the atmosphere. Pyrotechnic devices will fire as the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz takes place. That will expose the descent module's heat shield to the fiery heat of reentry. And at that point, the Soyuz will be on track for its descent toward the landing site. It will first deploy a pilot parachute followed by a main parachute to significantly slow the rate of descent down for the Soyuz spacecraft and enable it to land after a final firing of braking rockets at the landing site. That touchdown expected at 4:14 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, which will be 3:14 and 39 seconds p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan, just 90 miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan. The departure of Kopra, Peake, and Malenchenko from the International Space Station leaves behind the three other crew members who are now the newly formed Expedition 48 crew. The commander of the International Space Station, now for the second time, is Jeff Williams of NASA. He took over command on Friday morning from Tim Kopra, joined by Alexei Ovchinin and Alex Gripochka of Roscosmos, who Williams launched with back on March 18th for their own 6-month mission aboard the orbital outpost. They will be a 3-man crew for the next 3 weeks, awaiting the arrival of the next trio of residents to the station, that consisting of NASA's Kate Rubins, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Takoya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. They are scheduled to launch on the morning of July 7th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which would be the evening of July 6th here in the United States, for a 2-day rendezvous in the newly furnished and modified Soyuz MS-01 spacecraft that will experience a deliberate, planned 34-orbit or 2-day rendezvous to test all of the new upgraded systems in that Soyuz spacecraft, docking scheduled in the early morning hours of July 9th, and that will bring the station back to its normal complement of 6 people on board.
Approximately an hour and 5 minutes until landing.
In Kazakhstan, the search and recovery forces called Rosaviatsa from the Russian Defense Ministry and the Civilian Recovery Forces, along with a group of NASA personnel and European Space Agency personnel, are all en route from Karaganda, Kazakhstan, the staging city for this morning's landing, to the landing site itself. Again, it's about a 2-hour helicopter ride from Karaganda to the landing site, which is located 90 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. The 8 Russian Mi-8 helicopters headed for the prime landing site will arrive at about the time that the Soyuz is descending toward the landing site under its orange and white main parachute. They on the ground already at the landing site, 4 all-terrain vehicles and Antonov fixed-wing aircraft The larger of the two aircraft, the Antonov 26, will be the prime command and control center, relaying voice and data from the Soyuz spacecraft to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov at the Russian Mission Control Center. One by one, those Russian Mi-8 helicopters will land in a staggered pattern at the spacecraft to begin the work to extract the crew members following the touchdown of the Soyuz vehicle. The three crew members will be placed in comfortable chairs alongside the spacecraft, while other recovery personnel erect an inflatable medical tent nearby. That medical tent will be where the crew members are brought. They'll be carried in their chairs, having begun the recovery from 186 days of weightlessness. The tug of gravity against their bodies will be felt first when they begin to enter the Earth's atmosphere, a point called entry interface, where the crew will be at an altitude of about 62 miles above the Earth, that coming at about 28 minutes or so following the deorbit burn itself. The ballistics officers for the Russian flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center have updated the coordinates for the landing site, calling for the Soyuz now to touch down at 47 degrees, 21 minutes, and 5 seconds north latitude, 69 minutes, 69 degrees, 38 minutes, 4 seconds east longitude. So just a very slight tweak to the landing coordinates that had been previously provided. The Soyuz expected to touch down right on time at 4:14 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:14 and 39 seconds p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan, about 90 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan.
Agate. This is MCC Moscow. How copy? Go ahead, this is Agate. So, Yuri, what do you see on the BZU display on the onboard recording unit? Delta V for descent is all zeros. The data and the separation and the time of the maximum G's and the longitude, they're all zeros, and the rotation is all zeros. We have the SUS settings on the display. We copy.
Russian flight controllers in Korolyov tagging up with Yuri Malenchenko, the Soyuz commander. Again, he is strapped into the center seat of the descent module, the centermost portion, the middle portion of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft, the only one that survives the heat of re-entry, of course. The other two segments of the Soyuz, the forward orbital module and the rear instrumentation and propulsion module, burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Malenchenko in the center seat, flanked on his left by board engineer number 1, who is Tim Kopra of NASA, off-going ISS commander for Expedition 47. On Malenchenko's right is Tim Peake of the European Space Agency, who is wrapping up his first flight, 186 days in space. A couple of timed milestones to keep track of. That module separation will occur at 3:49 and 11 seconds a.m. Central Time at an altitude of almost 87 miles above the Earth. Again, the heat shield for the Soyuz will be exposed to repel the plasma that will build up around the spacecraft in temperatures of some 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the Soyuz exits that plasma regime, where G-forces will build up to about 4 to 5 times the force of gravity against the crew, the heat shield will be jettisoned, exposing the altimeter at the base of the Soyuz vehicle that will compute altitude and rate of descent to the Soyuz computers as it targets its landing site to the southeast of Zhezkazgan.
Fleet.
Atmospheric entry, or entry interface as it is known, is scheduled to occur at 3:52 a.m. Central Time, followed about a minute and a half later by the entry of the spacecraft into that plasma. Entry guidance will begin as the computers begin to update its position relative to the Earth and its track toward the landing site. The plasma experience for the crew will last about 5 minutes. They will exit from that plasma regime at about 3:58 a.m. Central Time, just 2 minutes before the command is issued to open up the parachutes. 2 pilot parachutes will first be deployed, the second of which extracts a drogue chute. That drogue chute is then released, measuring about 24 square meters, slowing the Soyuz down from a descent rate of 230 meters per second to just 80 meters per second. That will be followed, of course, by the main parachute deployment. That covers a wider area of some 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz down to a descent rate of just 7.2 meters per second. Its harnesses first allow the Soyuz to descend at a canted angle of about 30 degrees to expel heat, then shifts the Soyuz to a straight vertical descent toward the landing site for the firing of the soft landing engines, or the final braking rocket firing just a couple of feet off the ground, followed by touchdown itself. We're coming up on the 5-minute mark toward the deorbit burn. Everything again continuing to go as planned as Malenchenko, Peak, and Kopra stand by for the 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing, a braking maneuver, if you will, to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit to begin its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere.
Oh, wait. Yep, there's Cygnus. And Cygnus has gained quite a bit of distance from station since it has separated. Well, Soyuz is still quite close.
Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the team is led by Flight Director Courtney McMillan. She is presiding over this team of flight controllers who are working in concert with the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. Courtney McMillan is on the right side of your screen, joined on console by astronauts Jim Kelly and Sonny Williams, who's a member of the commercial crew program cadre of astronauts. Also, however, because of her vast experience on board the International Space Station, is as Soyuz systems expert, basically a second set of eyes on console this morning for the descent of Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko through the atmosphere toward their landing site in Kazakhstan. Coming up on the 2.5-minute mark toward the deorbit burn.
Burn should begin in about 2 minutes.
The landing site in a very remote area to the southeast of Zhezkazgan contains a number of genus of plants, including alliaceous types of plants, mostly barren area, though. specifically chosen in the ballistics trajectory of an entry and landing for a Soyuz spacecraft so as not to take it over any populated areas. Again, the Soyuz will be moving from southwest to northeast toward its landing site, arriving for a scheduled landing at 4:14 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, which is 3:14 p.m. at the landing site, a mid-afternoon landing just over 6 hours before sunset.
Agate, this is MCC Moscow. How copy? We did not copy your last, Moscow. It was unintelligible. Please continue monitoring. Inaudible.
Inside a minute now until the deorbit burn begins. 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines.
Go ahead. Escada cover is open and we sent the J3 command. 30 seconds till Escada main engine activation.
Ten seconds until the initiation of the deorbit burn. The crew will continue to give updates on the progress of the burn for its 4-minute, 37-second duration.
We confirm that Escada main engine performed the burn at the time indicated.
The deorbit burn is underway.
We see delta V of 0.48.
The deorbit burn beginning on time at 3:22 a.m. Central Time.
12 meters. Current V, delta V is 12 meters. At 11:22:53, it was 20 meters. 25 meters at 57 seconds. Schedule parameters are nominal and the delta V is constant.
The deorbit burn continues in good shape.
1 minute 15. We have 34 meters. One minute 30 seconds. We're at 40 meters. The prop consumption is nominal and the delta V is nominal as well.
186 days after it launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the Soyuz TMA-19M is on its way home. The deorbit burn going very well so far. Search and recovery force personnel and NASA and European Space Agency personnel en route to the landing site. Just about halfway through the deorbit burn now. Everything continues to look very, very good. Good engine performance, good delta velocity.
At 2 minutes 30 seconds, we have 68 meters. Schedule parameters are nominal.
14 minutes 57 until climb landing.
At 2 minutes 46 seconds, we are at 75 meters.
meters.
83 meters at 3 minutes. 96 meters at 3 minutes 30 seconds.
All the numbers are good. So far, so good.
At 3:59 minutes, we are at 110 meters.
Everything is nominal so far with this deorbit burn, slowing the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, a retrograde braking maneuver to enable the spacecraft to begin to descend into the Earth's atmosphere.
At 4:30, we're at 125 meters per second.
Standing by for the completion of the deorbit burn.
Thermal sensor is off.
The deorbit burn is complete and it was executed in perfect fashion. Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, Yuri Malenchenko heading home toward a landing in south-central Kazakhstan.
We confirm that KSD DU is open. We see that the pressure is dropping in the BO module.
That call signifying that the orbital module, the bulbous top portion of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft, is automatically being depressurized in preparation for the separation of the modules that will take place at 3:49 a.m. Central Time, exposing the descent module with the crew inside and its heat shield to begin to repel the heat of re-entry.
I got it. This is FCC Moscow. Go ahead. This is Agate. GK went through at the required time, at the time set, and we confirm that we have reached delta V of 128 meters per second. In Moscow, we're not copying you very clearly. The systems are all nominal. How copy us now? Pretty good. Please check the SUS settings at the settings or Ustavki display. Copy and work.
This is Mission Control Houston. The deorbit burn again was executed on time at 3:22 a.m. Central Time. 4-minute, 37-second retrograde firing. The Soyuz TMA-19M and its trio of crew members on its way home for a landing coming up about 45 minutes from now in south-central Kazakhstan, southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan. We may be experiencing some choppy communications, as is the case all the time with Soyuz entry, at a range of about 31 miles away from the International Space Station. The geometry of the Soyuz VHF antennas to the space station's antennas for communication relay through the station itself is a bit distant, and so we may be losing communications from time to time, although the Russian flight controllers of the Russian Mission Control Center will continue to call the crew on a continuous basis for updated reports on how things are going on board the Soyuz vehicle. The next major event, once again, the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle. That's scheduled to occur at 3:49 a.m. Central Time, while the Soyuz is at an altitude of some 87 miles above the Earth.
Agate, this is Moscow. How do you read?
Once again, as we mentioned a moment ago, it is not uncommon for communications to be lost between the Russian control center in Korolyov and the crew on board the Soyuz because of the distance that the Soyuz is opening between itself and the International Space Station and the geometry of the VHF antenna system on the Soyuz spacecraft itself. As the Soyuz gets much closer to its landing site, it will be acquired by the search and recovery forces who are in place around the landing site in an oval-shaped circular racetrack pattern. They will be able to pick up a radio beacon from the Soyuz vehicle, as well as the ability to communicate by voice from the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that serve as relay stations, basically command and control stations over the landing site, supervising the movements and the choreography of Rosaviatsa, the search and recovery forces themselves. Those forces are being augmented, as always, by NASA personnel, and in this case, also by European Space Agency personnel, who will be at the landing site, landing in a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters that are en route from the staging city of Karaganda to the landing site to assist in the extraction of and the recovery of the crew.
Agata, this is Moscow. How do you read?
The call sign of Yuri Malenchenko's Soyuz spacecraft is Agat, and that is the call sign that the Russian flight controllers are calling up to the crew with.
Agate, this is Moscow. Do you read me? Yes, this is Agate. Read you loud and clear. Inaudible. You have the format? Yes, and nothing changed. Everything is the same. Inaudible? As I reported to you before, nothing has changed. Nothing. But you do have data? I did not copy. Do you have data on the set point display? Yes. I have the Zeus set point and also the landing angle
142.3 degrees. Very well, copy. You may close.
Flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center talking with Soyuz Commander Yuri Malenchenko, getting updates on the system's performance on board the Soyuz, which so far is rock solid following a 4-minute, 37-second deorbit burn that has resulted in the Soyuz velocity slowing down by 128 meters per second. The Soyuz will soon begin to descend toward the Earth's atmosphere. At that point, called entry interface, the crew will feel the first tug of gravity in 186 days since they were launched. The next event, as you see in this animation, is the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz at 3:49 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz will descend toward the landing site and then, in sequential fashion, deploy a pilot parachute, a drogue chute, and then the large main parachute as it targets a landing some 90 miles to the southeast of the town of Jezkazgan. Just a few seconds before touchdown, the soft landing engines, as they are called, or a final firing of the braking rockets will take place, and then the Soyuz will be back on Earth for the first time since it left the Earth on December 15th of last year. "37 minutes now until the anticipated touchdown of the Soyuz TMA-19M. As mentioned earlier, communications become somewhat choppy between the crew on board and the Russian flight control team in Korolyov. The communications should improve later in the descent phase of this return to Earth for Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko as the Soyuz approaches its landing site and comes within range of contact with the Rosaviatsa Russian Search and Recovery Forces Antonov fixed-wing aircraft.
"36 minutes until." Following Friday morning's change of command ceremony, in which Expedition 47 Commander Tim Kopra of NASA handed over command of the International Space Station to NASA's Jeff Williams, the crew took a nap for several hours and then were awakened early Friday evening to begin landing preparations. The departing crew members, Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko, said farewell to their three colleagues, Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka, and closed the hatch to the Soyuz vehicle at 9:34 p.m. Central Time. That was followed a minute later by the closing of the hatch to the Rosviet module, the docking port
to which the Soyuz had been attached since December 15th. The departing crew conducted a series of leak checks, both in the docking interface between the Soyuz and the International Space Station, as well as internally within the descent module itself, before donning their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits and conducting final systems checks with the Russian Control Center personnel. With all of that having been completed, the Soyuz docking mechanism was powered up. The hooks were opened that held the Soyuz to the Rosviet docking port. Undocking of the Soyuz occurred at 12:52 a.m. Central Time, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time, as the Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 252 statute miles over far eastern Mongolia. Two separation burns began an opening rate for the Soyuz to move and phase away from the International Space Station. That culminated in the initiation of the deorbit burn at 3:22 a.m. Central Time, 4:22 a.m. Eastern Time. That burn lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds and was perfectly executed. We're 32.5 minutes away from the anticipated landing of the Soyuz in south-central Kazakhstan. The next major event is coming up in about 7 minutes. That will be the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft.
This is Moscow. Do you read me?
At the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan, the report from the Russian Control Center is that the search and recovery forces are in position, ready to await the arrival of the Soyuz vehicle and its three occupants. A series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters are approaching the landing site at this hour. They will be circling around the landing site in a pre-prescribed pattern to await the view of the Soyuz under its large orange and white parachute.
Agate, this is Moscow. Separation complete. F3 command sent from the command panel.
So we've had module separations. Modules separation. Basically, the Soyuz is now in 3 pieces. From what I can tell. Judging by the Soyuz is currently here.
We're about 4 minutes or so away from the anticipated separation of the three sections of the Soyuz. Again, this is designed to enable the heat shield on the base of the Soyuz spacecraft to face in the direction of travel and repel the heat as the Soyuz enters the plasma regime. That entry into the plasma and its exit from the plasma, that elapsed time is about 5 minutes of exposure to peak heating, Once the Soyuz emerges from that area of peak heating, it will jettison the heat shield, exposing the base of the Soyuz, which has an altimeter and other instrumentation that will feed the Soyuz onboard computers, altitude information, and its range toward the touchdown site in south-central Kazakhstan, as well as its rate of descent. You can see again in the animation the deployment of the parachute, first a pilot chute and a drogue chute. That's followed by the main parachute deployment that is scheduled to take place right at the top of the hour at 4 a.m. Central Time. The soft landing engines then fire just a few feet above the ground in a final computerized maneuver that eases the rate of descent for the crew members who are on their backs, strapped into the descent module, the only section of the Soyuz that returns home.
Oh, module separation has not happened yet, it seems. I think just that. So use the setup for module sep? I do not know. Well, the JSC is optimistic. It's already got Naruka on the list of modules. Well, not list, but on the ISS thing. "25 minutes, 43 seconds. And presumably it's the static from the plasma.
We now have confirmation through the Russian control center that we have the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz that occurred right on time. The module separation occurring at a point above the Earth, some 87 miles in altitude. Time to touchdown, 25 minutes. Yuri Malenchenko reporting from the Soyuz that the module separation was nominal. In about 2 minutes, the Soyuz will hit entry interface, the upper reaches of the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of some 62 miles. That will be the point at which the three crew members will feel the first pull of gravity against their bodies since their launch back on December 15th.
You know, orbit would be around 4 times higher than the okay. Oh, God. Should be around 4 times higher than the common lines or the atmosphere. But landing should occur shortly. The ISS is about to enter Russian ground station coverage.
"23 minutes until touchdown. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters with personnel from NASA, the European Space Agency, and Rosaviatsa, the search and recovery force team itself. They are the 8 prime Mi-8 helicopters are approaching the landing site in Kazakhstan. They'll all be in place, airborne, awaiting the site of the Soyuz under its orange and white parachute.
Hopefully
Once the Soyuz touches down, those helicopters will then land in fairly rapid and sequential fashion to begin the process of getting the personnel around the Soyuz itself and the process of opening the hatch to extract the crew members.
Well, that was interesting. Yeah, I think 22 minutes until estimated landing.
Just about 21 minutes until touchdown. The Soyuz are now in the reaches of Earth's atmosphere. And in fact, the plasma should be building up around the spacecraft. The Soyuz at an altitude of some 50 miles above the Earth.
Okay,
Its guidance taking it toward a nominal landing some 90 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan.
Inaudible.
Yep, that's the current location of Soyuz. See re-entry effects on both of these projections.
Intermittent communications being heard by the Russian flight control team in Korolyov from the crew. Again, this is not unusual, and that communications link should improve as the Soyuz approaches the landing site and establishes its communications capability with the Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces.
They're at the point where Soyuz would be experiencing maximum Gs, I believe. Meanwhile, Cygnus has a great view of North Korea. 19 minutes until landing. And most of the way they're in. Well, they're in the really thick part of the atmosphere now. It's supposed to be the ROC. No, I think so. I'm not sure though.
The Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft and its 3 occupants currently barreling through the area of peak heating. Their exit from this plasma regime will come just about 2 minutes from now. The crew will be pulling about 4 to 5 times the force of gravity against their bodies as they move toward the landing site. The command to open the parachutes on the Soyuz expected right at the top of the hour, about 4 minutes from now. "17 minutes until the Soyuz landing in Kazakhstan. This will wrap up 186 days in space for Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko, a mission spanning 2,976 orbits of the Earth, a journey of some 78.7 million miles. Yuri Malenchenko ending the 6th flight of his career. He will have totaled 828 days in space, second on the all-time list, just behind fellow cosmonaut Gennady Padalka. Tim Kopra's 2 flights will have accrued 244 days in space, and of course Tim Peake on this, his first flight into space, 186 days.
Agate, this is Moscow. How do you read us? We have 4.2 and have controlled descent. Guys, how do you feel and what's the pressure in the SI? 695 and plus 3 seconds. And we feel good. Copy. Thank you.
And that a report from Yuri Malenchenko, all well aboard the Soyuz.
And we think that you are doing great. We wish you a soft landing. Thanks.
And that is the sound of the radio beacon on the Soyuz spacecraft that is sending signals to the search and recovery forces at the landing site in Kazakhstan. We're coming up on the command to open the parachutes. Again, 2 pilot parachutes will first be deployed, the second of which extracts a drogue chute, followed shortly thereafter by the release of the main parachute.
And the G loads are decreasing. Standing by.
Okay. Learning the video with buffering, but buffering, that's a different thing altogether. Jesus Christ.
This is Mission Control Houston, just 14 minutes away from touchdown. Everything going well, according to the last report a moment ago from Soyuz Commander Yuri Malenchenko. Standing by for confirmation of chute deployment.
Chute deployment? That's a big parachute.
And we see that the SR pressure is dropping. And the descent module, the pressure is dropping. Agadi, how copy? We're glad to hear you, guys. Everything's fine on board. We copy, thank you. Please strap yourself tighter. We copy you, we're standing by.
Minutes until touchdown, and although we haven't heard a verbal confirmation, it should be assumed that the parachutes have been deployed. The crew, of course, reporting it's in great shape.
So I wonder if we're going to get anything. Any video.
This is Mission Control Houston, 11 minutes until touchdown of the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft. The search and recovery forces are on scene at the landing site, some 90 statute miles to the southeast of the town of Jezkazgan. We are awaiting confirmation, visual confirmation, confirming that the search and recovery forces and the helicopters and the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft are, in fact, within visual contact with the Soyuz.
Unintelligible and inaudible.
Everything, however, appears to be going as planned in a nominal descent from orbit to wrap up this 186-day mission.
Unintelligible, we're feeling fine.
Oh, there you go. Look at that parachute. You can't even see the Soyuz. It's like a giant jellyfish, really. It's the only thing I can describe it. The only way.
We can see on the front screen at the Russian Mission Control Center the Soyuz descending under its parachute. We're waiting for this signal to be locked up for distribution for us. A nominal descent by the Soyuz toward its landing site.
Agati?
And there is our view of...
You can just about see Soyuz.
There is the Soyuz TMA-19M. For those of us just joining our broadcast, we are just 8.5 minutes away from touchdown. A good view of the Soyuz spacecraft descending under its parachute. Everything has gone by the book, all the way from hatch closure last night to the undocking earlier this morning to the deorbit burn that took place not quite 48 minutes ago. We're now under 8 minutes until touchdown. The search and recovery forces are in place, flying in a circular pattern around the landing site. On the ground, the RSC Energia technical personnel and other support personnel are in place in all-terrain vehicles, waiting for touchdown that is expected to occur just about 7.5 minutes from now. Yuri Malenchenko, the Soyuz commander, having reported a short time ago that the crew is feeling well and that everything has gone normally with the Soyuz's return from orbit.
One 45, 1.5.
Oh, you've... Okay. I was considering punching YouTube in the face. Punching a website in the face. Yeah, I'm kind of tired and crazy. Not a good... What's the shoot?
Unintelligible.
The Soyuz spacecraft darting through several banks of clouds over the landing site. Time to touchdown just over 6 minutes. Again, that is a radio beacon from the Soyuz TMA-19M relaying a radio signal and other telemetry to the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft for the search and recovery forces that are flying in the vicinity of the landing site, acting as a relay source for the data to be received by the Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. And emerging from another deck of clouds, there is the parachute, the familiar large orange and white parachute. This main parachute covers an area of about 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of some 7.2 meters per second. Just a few feet off the ground, the soft landing engines will fire in a final braking maneuver, and the Soyuz and its crew will be home.
Soyuz more clearly there.
Having launched 186 days ago in a journey that has spanned almost 79 million miles over almost 3,000 orbits of the Earth, the Soyuz is less than 4 minutes away from touchdown.
I have no idea what altitude Soyuz is at the moment.
The Russian Mi-8 helicopters have also established visual contact with the Soyuz as it approaches its landing site. Time to touchdown about 3 minutes. It is 3:12 in the afternoon in Kazakhstan as we near the end of the mission of this crew that launched back on December 15th, part of Expedition 46 initially, and then in March transitioning to Expedition 47 under the command of NASA's Tim Kopra. On board the International Space Station, the 3 Expedition 48 crew members, the new station commander Jeff Williams of NASA and his 2 Russian crewmates Oleg Skropochka and Alexei Ovchinin are also watching this same view that you're watching of the Soyuz descending to the landing site, the video being fed up to the International Space Station.
We're past 1 kilometer mark.
Just about a minute until touchdown, and you can see one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters flying in the vicinity with good visual observation of the Soyuz.
That means it's about to land. It's about to touch the ground. Very shortly, you should see the ground coming up on the bottom of the screen.
Copy.
Still have no idea how long it's going to be until the Soyuz lands.
The Soyuz nearing its touchdown point, southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan.
How many times has he said that? Somebody count. If you watch all these, tell me how many times he said that. So there's the ground.
And we're standing by for touchdown.
Keeping an eye for the little cloud of smoke and earth that you can see usually just before we landed. Yep, they've touchdown.
The Soyuz is home. Touchdown confirmed at 4:15 a.m. Central Time. 3:15 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko are back on Earth after 186 days in space, the same number of days aboard the International Space Station. The Soyuz has landed.
I'm going to end this video here.
Again, landing confirmed at 4:15 a.m. Central Time, 3:15 p.m. at the landing site southeast of the